What if employees engaged with their work software like it was Candy Crush? In this episode, I get to speak with Tobias Washington, the head of learning experience design and digital adoption at CHRISTUS Health. CHRISTUS Health is a massive not-for-profit healthcare organization with over 600 facilities. And Tobias is here to talk to me about how he keeps over 60,000 healthcare professionals using their technology effectively. I'm your host, Leah Seener, and this is Digital Adoption. Hey, Tobias, how are you?
Hello, how are you?
I'm good. It's so nice to have you on the podcast. I'm so excited.
I'm super excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So before I ask you all sorts of questions about digital adoption, which, I really feel like there's just no one better to talk to us about digital adoption in the context of learning and development, and then more specifically in the context of healthcare, which I just think is super relevant. And, so we're going to dive into that. But before we get there, I'd love for you to just tell our audience what your role is, and then what your overall goal is as that role in your organization.
Absolutely. And first of all, your comments are too kind. It's just a pleasure to hear such nice things from you and the Walk Me team. So here at CHRISTUS, my role is really to focus on the digital associate experience. At CHRISTUS, they call their employees associates. Mm-hmm. And so it's really to create a consumer-like experience in every part of their jobs. And so I have the digital media and content teams, which are responsible for creating all of the content and kind of graphic design, visual design. We do a little bit of AR, VR work through that team. And we have a product management team, which is responsible for all of the technologies we use to produce that digital experience. And then I also have software training as a part of my responsibilities. And I would say that the overall goal of leveraging digital adoption and our just overall goal in this space of digital experiences is to just create that consumer-like experience that you have outside of work, to bring that inside of work, because that is our world external. And we want to make sure that same frictionless experience that we have as consumers, that we create that same experience for our associates in the workplace.
That's awesome. So you want work to feel like playing Candy Crush.
Yeah, that is exactly it. How do we make work feel like exactly what we do outside of work?
Right.
It's so funny. I was talking with my boss and I said, why aren't we recruiting on TikTok? Or why aren't we recruiting on Instagram? Because that's where the workers and the talent we want are. Let's go there and get them.
Totally. I think that's just that's something that across industries, people are really starting to realize is you can't have one experience at work and another experience in life anymore, because that won't cut it. You can't shop on Amazon and then have to manually input everything on the computer at work. It doesn't add up.
You can't buy a car completely online and then have to come to the office to sign your paperwork to start a new job. Those experiences don't match. If
totally.
You buy a car completely online, surely I can onboard myself virtually some kind of way.
Totally. I love that, because I think it also means that the more we push customer experience, the more we're inevitably going to raise the bar for the employee experience.
Absolutely.
And we're all both. We all work somewhere and we all buy things. So it's like a cycle.
Yeah. And how do we begin to see the employee as a client, as a customer versus as an employee, as HR teams and as, talent and learning professionals, to really start to see them as, or see our employees, or in CHRISTUS case, associates, as as someone who's buying a good or a service from me, or we're offering a service to them, like how do we start to make that mental shift in the way that we offer things to our employees, and how do we start to see the services that we offer as products, right? That they are purchasing from us. So absolutely.
Very cool.
I get super excited about this. So you have to cut me off.
No. That's the best kind of guest.
Yeah.
Someone who like geeks out over, the digital experience.
Yeah.
Me too. So, and okay. So, and how, I mean, I obviously researched you, so I know this, but for our listeners, so that they can take your word for it, and and the advice and the input that you have to share. How did you get to this place? How did you become an expert? And also, I can say as, part of Walk Me, definitely a champion of digital adoption and digital learning. Like, how did you get here?
Yeah, I think it's the expert part is tough, but I would definitely say, because the space is still very new, so I would say that
Right.
I'm a huge supporter and champion of the space, and striving every day to become more and more of an expert in how we think and how we approach digital adoption. But I would think the epiphany that I had in 2016, 2015, I was working to put together a garage door in my home. And I have instructional designers that report to me, and they work really hard to put together these manuals and these job aids and all these great things that are just really paper based. And I was getting ready to put together this garage door opener in my home. I took out this really nice manual that the garage door opener people had put together, and it was really big and thick. And I was like, nope. Threw that to the side, whipped out my phone,
Yeah.
and Googled some YouTube videos and watched the series of YouTube videos that helped me put that garage door opener. And I never opened the manual, never looked at any of the things that came in the box. And it was like, it's really weird, but it was like sitting in my garage having this epiphany, this aha moment, like, why can work and corporate learning be just like that? Why are we still producing these experiences? And the crazy thing is, like, I have a team that reports to me that creates this stuff that I just threw away. And I wasn't challenging my teams nor myself to produce that experience that I wanted, So I think that's when I really became a champion and really said, hey, came back to my team and said, hey guys, let's blow it up. Like, let's just get in a room, let's whiteboard, let's figure out, like, there's got to be a different way. Like, how do we make this work inside our organization? The way we have experiences outside of work. So I think that's when I really became a champion and striving and set out to be an expert, if you will.
That's awesome. That's such a great story. It's like, and it's just like what we were saying before, is like those two experiences, like the work experience and the life experience, are just merging. So I love that. That's such a great example. So what are I know that you guys have put already a lot of, time and resources into tackling digital adoption challenges at Christus, but let's say rewind before you got there and realized that was a space that needed to be, tackled. What are the main, or a few of the main, digital adoption challenges or digital experience challenges that you guys were experiencing in the organization, and that you think might be pretty universal challenges for either big companies or even for healthcare companies specifically?
Yeah, so this is probably the fourth organization I've worked for, and until recently, a good majority of my career has been in the training space. And every organization that I have worked for has had the exact same problem as it relates to getting information in front of the associates or the employees, and making sure that it when I first got in the training field, that there was this huge buzzword of just in time training, and we were all trying to figure that out. And we were producing these new QRGs and these new smart tip sheets and cheat sheets and every other buzzword you could think of to try and solve that problem of how do I make sure folks know what to do when they want to do. And there's all the research around the forgetting curve and the 7-20-20-10 models and all these things, right? We were still all having the same problem from organization to organization. And we have done so much to try and conquer that problem. And more specifically in healthcare, our nurses and our doctors and our clinicians are trying to take care of our patients. And we're constantly trying to teach them how to use this new software, teach them this new tool. And they come into a classroom environment and they do what they need to do to pass the class and get back on the floor. But I think there's also that added challenge of, in healthcare, how can I make sure that these folks know how to use these tools and these technologies because they might be taking care of my mom or my dad. I wouldn't want them to have a gap in knowledge in the moment of need. So I want to, that's kind of what also fuels my passion around the work that we do in healthcare. Is just, I wouldn't want them to put the wrong prescription or put the wrong dose on my parents or my child or my family members medication order, right? Or whatever they're working on, the billing, because even in the billing space, I don't want them to put the wrong code on there and we get the wrong bill.
Yeah, it can get pretty steep.
Whatever they're doing, we want to make sure that, that we provide that in the moment need. And no matter what we did, all the strategies we put in place, none of them stopped the, hey, Joe, how do you do this? We could do whatever, and it didn't matter. They were still going to find the person that was the know-it-all on their team.
Do it.
Ask them, how do I fix this problem?
Yeah.
And I think that's the overall challenge that we've always had. And I had this huge team in the IT department trying to solve that problem. And we were getting ready to start a project for our physicians. And I just said, hey, time out. Like, we can't keep doing the same things over and over again, expecting different results. Like, we have got to look at some different solutions and went back to this product that I saw at a conference and said, let's try it. Like, let's see if this could be some of the answers to some of the problems we've been trying to solve for 15 years, right?
Wow. That's crazy. And did you kind of see that all of these different problems were actually all rooted in the same problem, which was, not being able to, get your employees or associates to like fully adopt or, utilize the software? Like, was that clear to you all along? Or was that kind of like, the walk me pitch that led you to realize that there was one problem? Or is that something you kind of started putting together? Like, oh, these are all kind of the same problem.
I think it's something that you in the back of your mind that, as an IT geek as well, that sometimes the system can only do so much, right?
Yeah.
There is a human component that we have to try and build. And there's some friction in the technology, and how do we overcome that? I think the product itself and the digital adoption space starts to shine a brighter light on a problem that we've known was there all the time. And I think it's a problem that we didn't know, the right term or the right key phrase or whatever that might be to say or to coin it, like this space has become the digital adoption space. But we've always known that it was a problem. And we've always known that there was a series of issues that kept us from really getting to the employee and reducing the friction as they try to use these technologies.
Very cool. Yeah. It seems to me just from, talking to so many different people and hearing all of these stories that it's kind of becoming more intuitive now that any large company, even small companies, but especially large companies, need to be so heavy on the digital side. There's just really no, option anymore. It's just like not professional anymore to like do things the hard way,
Yeah.
and it's like, so everyone kind of is going to start to face these problems. And then, and the more you scale, the more employees you have, the worse these problems get, obviously. So it's really interesting to hear that. And I do think that, it's starting to become more and more this, you know, thorn in the side of enterprises that are trying to really be successful in digital transformation.
That's
They're
right.
like, but I'm doing everything right.
That's
And
right.
like, it's not working.
Yeah. And I think it just goes back to the conversation we're having. It's just becoming an expectation that if you are not thinking about how you support your employees and your associates in a more digital capacity, then you are basically setting your employees and your associates up to move to the companies that are, because
Totally.
it was kind of like me and my wife, where I like to eat. So me and my wife were going to get some food this weekend. And we were trying to figure out which restaurant we were going to, and thinking about like all the social distancing and things like that. And so we
Yeah.
were, okay, well, we know that restaurant's going to be crowded, and then I'm going to have to call, and I'm going to have to wait on hold for 10 minutes to place my order. But this restaurant has a online ordering where I can order it right now. By the time we get there, it will be ready. I can click the button in the app, and they'll know I'm in the parking lot. Like the whole process, even though
Totally.
I'm driving, I'm still doing the same activities, but the introduction of technology that reduces that friction that we speak about, totally made my choice as to which restaurant I was going to eat from,
Yeah.
right? And I
Yeah.
think that that's the same thing that's going to happen in the business world. When I go to start a job application, and if that process isn't easy enough and friction, and there's a lot of steps and unnecessary things, and I have to go through a lot of unnecessary challenges to get my profile in the system, you know, in this market, I will stop your application process and go over to the next application process. There's a whole lot of,
Totally.
and so
Totally.
as we think about this war on talent, whether it's trying to find the right people to be on our teams or trying to keep the right people on our teams, we have to focus on the digital experience, because it is now an expectation that
Yeah.
you have a digital presence, and your presence is smooth, simple, and easy for me to use.
100%. I totally agree with that. I think like you're giving a lot of insight on the experience side, and it obviously benefits the business to have happy associates or happy employees. But I'd also love to hear, because I know that billing was like a real point, like a real reason that you guys realized you wanted to get a digital adoption solution and that it was worth investing in. So what do you think kind of are the effects of driving revenue in an organization that's not, that hasn't yet detected a digital adoption problem versus a company that has? Like, where does the, rubber meet the road in terms of money and billing and revenue?
Yeah, and I think that that's one of the challenges that I've been very open about that we had initially, because sometimes this stuff, all the time, this stuff is very cool, and it's hard to stop and say, hey, what problem are we really solving? And
Yeah.
because it's cool to us, and we know that it's bringing value, but to a most senior executive, their role is to keep the organization profitable, right? And how do you articulate to that CFO and your CHROs and folks like that, that this is actually helping our bottom line? And I think the real goal is to really stop and make sure that we're focusing on the things that do bring the most value to the organization. And sometimes that requires a little bit of a deep dive and maybe, some time. But what I have learned is that usually if you can put a quantitative measure on folks' time, and, the time that they waste trying to find the answer, the time that they waste trying to produce something that's less than quality. You think about in the building space, where we tried to leverage Walk Me a little bit as well. If they put the wrong codes on those folks' bills, then how much money are we leaving on the table, right?
Yeah.
It's part of their job is to try and find every dime that we're owed. Even though we're a faith-based Catholic healthcare company, the goal is we got to keep, our sisters would tell us, hey, no margin, no mission, right? So their goal is to make sure.
That's awesome. That's going to be the title of your episode.
But at the same time, being fair to our patients as well. But
no, it's efficient. It's making sure that it's efficient and accurate on both sides. The same way you don't want to overbill, a client, you also don't want to, not get paid.
That's right. And so how can we put solutions in place that help with those things? Those are things that can, two things. One, that from a healthcare perspective equates to the bottom line. But then how do you really say, hey, look, this as an aggregate, this is what our associate population makes. And if they spend, 2 hours a day trying to find the solution, how much more efficient or how much more could they have gotten done if we gave them that 2 hours back?
Totally.
And, it was just recently we were looking at how an associate goes to change their address, and they go to our HR portal, and there's a number of steps, and then they fill out this ticket, and then another associate has to go in the back end and make the change for them. And it was, it was like, well, how much time did that take? Totally. That was a lot of time on both ends, right? Yeah. And so how can we, get the associate to do that themselves, right? And maybe not have as many FTEs to do stuff that the associates can do themselves, right? So it's looking at those types of things that really help demonstrate the value that it brings, and ultimately to the bottom line. Because my executives, rightfully so, don't deal too much with the soft costs, So we really work hard to get to, okay, if we save an associate an hour of time, we save the organization this much money.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of like it kind of affects the revenue of the organization, specifically in healthcare, in two ways. It sounds like one is actually billing accurately, which can be saving you otherwise lost money. And the other is enabling your employees to work faster and more efficiently, which allows the organization to make more money. Yeah. So it sounds like, it's in two ways, both important.
Yeah.
Very cool. And then, I would love to know, I'm in a different country than you even, so the experience is probably very different. Over the last year, you're working in, specifically in healthcare with the pandemic. Did you feel like, you guys were in a better position to be able to serve the greater community because you kind of had already figured this out? How did you see that demonstrated over this last year?
It's really funny. Getting digital adoption, or getting Walk Me rather, into our organizations and getting folks really centered around the vision, it was hard work. And still hard work. I still have to every now and then justify why we're focused on some of this work. And rightfully so. Folks need, you need to be challenged to make sure that you're doing the right things. But it was interesting that when the pandemic happened and a lot of these things were taking place, there was a lot of calls to my team specifically saying, okay, we're trying to think about how we solve this problem. Yes, we have the answer because we've already been pushing in this direction. We can leverage our digital adoption tools. We can leverage some of our other digital strategies to reach our workforce, who for the most part is no longer in the office from a desktop knowledge worker perspective. So I saw it in a number of ways. We were able to get messages to them directly to their desktops.
Yeah.
We were able to. One of the things was we were able to show them even how to code their time for pandemic purposes, because our organization would be reimbursed for time they spent on like a COVID unit or something like that. So
Wow.
you have a shortage of staff and you have a staff, excuse me, that's very focused on our patients more than ever. They didn't have. I mean, it's hard to get nurses to read emails anyway, but
Yeah.
they certainly didn't have time to do that now. And so how could we make it better that when they logged into the timekeeping system, that they were able to just go right there and something showed them how to get their time coded to the appropriate department so that the organization was reimbursed appropriately.
Wow.
There was a number of ways that we leveraged digital adoption to help us, but I would just point those out. Hopefully that kind of gives some insights. But
yeah, no, it does. I mean, I think it sounds like, the pandemic hit everyone hard and kind of posed new challenges for every organization. But, I think that already, like you said, you're like, yeah, I do know what we can do. I've been working on it this whole time. Like, in a way, I think that this chunk of time has been very validating for the professionals in their organizations that have already been champions of pushing, the digital experience, valuing, kind of finding the new modern way to teach and train, and recognizing that the old ways aren't going to work anymore, and that it's really obsolete. Like you said, it doesn't matter what you call it. No one's going to read the cheat sheet.
Yeah.
Nobody cares.
Well, and even if, and maybe they will read the cheat sheet. So if we go back to me going to get something to eat example.
Yes.
It's still, I still needed the menu. It was just how I got to the menu that was important to me, right? So if I had to drive to your restaurant and pick up a paper version of the menu, for someone who's a digital accelerator or who appreciates digital experiences like myself, that was going to deter me from coming to your restaurant. But if you gave me a digital way to access that information, I'm more likely to subscribe to your services. So one of the things that we learned in our digital adoption process is that there are folks who still want the cheat sheet and need the cheat sheet and the job aid. They still need that menu. Is how do we get it to them, right? And that's one of the biggest problems that we needed to solve, was how do we make sure that when they need the job aid or the training materials, that they can get to it at the moment of need. And so in our world, we leverage WalkMe. And so we're able to we call him Noah. We don't call him WalkMe. We put the little Noah icon on every application. And anytime you see that Noah icon, you can be confident that the menu is there, the job base, the cheat sheets are there. So I don't have to go search on a SharePoint site or remember which stack of paper it is on my desk. There's folks who still want the job aid. There's some folks who don't like the bubbles. So it's really more about how do we provide them with the experience that they want, but still how do we get them the menu?
Did you guys customize Noah? Does he look different, or is he just his name is Noah?
Yeah, his name is Noah. And we selected him for a number of reasons. We're, of course, a Christian faith-based organization. And one of the interesting stories in the Bible is how, Noah guided all of the different uh, creatures to safety from the great flood. And so we look at it from that perspective. Noah is helping us navigate our transitions
Floods
inside
of
of
life.
our
That's awesome.
yeah.
That's
But
awesome.
we we he is customized, depending on what we're doing. But he's always Noah.
That's awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Tobias. Really, it's like really awesome to hear. I love all of your analogies and stories, and it's very, human. And I feel like your perspective is, it's just refreshing because it's a reminder that all of these, massive business decisions that are being made and, software investments that are being made, it really does come down to people and the human experience. And, the fact that, there's no longer a separation between, your user experience as a person and your user experience as an employee somewhere, that those experiences need to add up, and it needs to be pretty seamless, or else, like you said, employees will go elsewhere and the organization will suffer. So
That's right. That's right. Well, it's
yeah,
a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. Hopefully the folks who are listening find some value, but thank you so much for giving me that.
totally. My pleasure. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thanks.